This is CNN Breaking News.
I'm Candy Crowley in Washington. Reliable Sources is just ahead, but first, a breaking story we're following. Two-star high school football players in Steubenville, Ohio, have been found guilty of raping a West Virginia teenager. The story has attracted national attention. The judge just ruled a few moments ago. Listen in.
I'm Teresa Davis in Pittsburgh. A breaking news story that we're following. Two high school football players of Steubenville, Ohio, have been found guilty of raping a West Virginia teenager. This story has attracted national attention. The judge just ruled a few moments ago. Let's listen in.
In this case, regarding the charges of rape, both defendants, Malik Richmond and Trenton Mays, are committed to the Department of Youth Services for a minimum period of 1 year, a maximum period till you're 21.
Again, this case was played out in juvenile court. That is why there is a judge, no jury. He decided on the verdict, as well as you heard there talking about the sentence. We want to go now to CNN's Poppy Harlow. She is in Steubenville, has been covering this trial. I cannot imagine, having just watched this on the feed coming in, how emotional that must have been sitting in the courtroom.
I've never experienced anything like it, Candy. It was incredibly emotional, incredibly difficult even for an outsider like me to watch what happened as these two young men that had such promising futures, star football players, very good students, literally watched as they believed their life fell apart. One of the young men, Malik Richmond, when that sentence came down, he collapsed. He collapsed in the arms of his attorney, Walter Madison. He said to him, "My life is over. No one is going to want me now." Very serious crime here. Both found guilty of raping the 16-year-old girl at a series of parties back in August. Alcohol-fueled parties. Alcohol, a huge part in this. But Trent Mays was also found guilty on a second count, and that is of felony illegal use of a minor in nudity-oriented material because he took a photograph of the victim laying naked on the floor that night. Trent Mays will serve 2 years in a juvenile detention facility. Malik Richmond will serve 1 year on that one count that he was found guilty for. But I want to let our viewers listen, because for the first time in this entire trial, we have now heard from the two young men. Trent Mays stood up apologizing to the victim's family in court. After him, Malik Richmond. Listen.
Again, this case was played out in juvenile court. That is why there is a judge but no jury. He decided on the verdict, as well as you saw there talking about the sentences. We want to go now to Lindsey Watson, who has been covering this trial. Lindsey?
The judge in this trial just released the verdict a few minutes ago. He ruled the two teens as agitated delinquent on both counts of rape and one count of distributing pictures of a minor. Now, just to verify, agitated delinquent is the equivalent to guilty in Ohio's juvenile justice system. The clear point in the Ohio rape law was upheld. If one person in a sexual encounter cannot respond, they cannot consent. The defense held the position that that the girl didn't say no or oppose in any way. Now, I want to let our viewers listen. For the first time in this entire trial, we have now heard from the two young boys. Trent Mays apologizing to the victim's family in court, and after him, Malik Richardson.
I would truly like to apologize to our family, my family, and the community. No picture should have been sent around, let alone even taken. That's all, sir. Thank you.
Anything you'd like to say, Malik?
I would like to apologize to you people. I had no intention to do anything like that. I'm sorry to put you guys through this. That is not... I want you to rise better, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't want to...
I was sitting about 3 feet from Malik when he gave that statement. It was very difficult to watch. And you know, something that came up throughout this sentencing, Candy, was that Malik's father got up and spoke. Malik has been living with guardians. His father, a former alcoholic, gotten into a lot of trouble with the law, been in prison before. And his father stood up and he told the court, I feel responsible for this. I feel like I wasn't there for my son. And before that, he came over to the bench where his son was sitting. He approached him, he hugged him, and he whispered in his ear. And Malik's attorney said to us in the courtroom, I have never heard Malik's father before say, I love you. He's never told his son that, but he just did today. This was an incredibly emotional day. These two juveniles being carried out right now. I'm watching people line up, and they will be committed today, Candy.
Trent Mays will spend a minimum of 2 years in a juvenile detention center for raping and taking nude pictures of the 16-year-old girl. Judge Thomas Lips ruled early this morning. Defendant Malik Richmond will serve a minimum of 1 year in a juvenile detention center for rape, the judge also ruled. The maximum sentence for both defendants will run until they are 21 years old. Lips also ruled that the two defendants will be credited with the time they have already served in the juvenile detention center.
In this instance, CNN clearly did not represent both sides of the story of the Steubenville rape case. Their actions were unethical and violated the justice is fairness principle. According to David Deitch's Raphael, fairness is a matter of making or allowing the same provision for each or all the persons concerned. The best interests of the victim and the audience, the public, were not fully represented. Because of this, we revised the CNN broadcast to better communicate both sides of the story, not just that of the rapists. Because of the lack of fairness, the basic human dignity of the victims and the audience were ignored. And according to Immanuel Kant, any action that undermines people's capacity for reason and their ability to exercise free will violate this requirement and thus is deemed immoral. As moral agents, we are duty-bound to give all respect to others that the idea of human dignity demands of everyone. Joel Feinberg also says that harm is in any act or state that sets back the interests of someone else. This setting back of someone's interests has to be concrete, something that explicitly makes a person's state of affairs or their ability to attain reasonable goals worse off than if the act had not been committed. While there is no explicit punishment regarding acts of harm, the scrutiny CNN faced in the aftermath of the trial prompted them to defend their broadcast. Now, more than ever, news stations and newscasters are facing ethical dilemmas such as these. It is our duty as broadcasters to make sure that harm is minimized and both sides of the story are represented.